Hello lovelies, welcome to the Goddess Enchantments channel. My name is Claire and today we're going to do a deck walkthrough and review. But first, if you are new here, welcome. If you are already a part of the family, then welcome back. I hope you enjoy this video. If you do, I would love it if you could give it a thumbs up, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and remember to hit the bell. I've had a lot of people saying, Claire, I'm not getting notified of your new videos. I'm currently trying to get up at least one per week, but hopefully two every Tuesday and Friday, which I've done for the last few weeks. So pop onto the channel, there's playlists there, everything you could need. But let's get on with the review. So we'll start out by having a look at the deck as usual, then have a little look at the book, and then I'll give you my personal opinions on the deck and you can tell me yours down below in the comments. So this deck is by Sophie Bashford. The artwork is by Hilary Wilson. It is a 44 card deck with book inside, obviously goddesses, gods and guardians, and it is by Hay House Publishing, so it's your standard Hay House tuck box that you would expect, and they're available pretty much everywhere you can get oracle decks, especially Amazon, online booksellers, probably a lot of witchy shops as well if they stock cards. So let's have a little look. Inside you've got a little bit of writing, as is common with the Hay House boxes. The back is plain in this one, and then you have your book, which is the standard quite thick book that we would expect with Hay House. We'll pop that to the side for the moment. And here's the main event, of course, our cards. So they are a standard oracle deck size. The card stock is pretty much the standard that's been coming out of Hay House at the moment. But you might have noticed from my recent reviews, it's a little bit thinner than usual. I'm actually noticing it across a few of the publishers that the cardstock just isn't as hardy. I have not had this deck long. I have not used it much. I've not used it for client readings, and it is dinged on the edges. Whereas I've got decks like my Cat Tarot, my Lord Ganesha deck. Oh my gosh, almost all the other decks that I have reviewed and loved on my channel, they have no scuffing on them, and I use my decks day in, day out for myself, for clients as well. So my decks are getting a lot of use and they're in heavy rotation. But recently, this kind of like damage that you're seeing, it just happens after the first shuffle or two, and I am a very gentle shuffler. So something to be aware of perhaps. So the back is quite lovely. It's very bright. Again, something a little bit different from a lot of the decks I've reviewed recently, which have been a lot more muted or golds or blacks. And then we move into the images. So you've got the goddesses, or what they consider a guardian's name here. Then you have a little bit that gives you an idea of their energy. So stand your ground. Some of them have a few key words. Now the art is really beautiful in here. They have done a wonderful job representing deities from across many pantheons, moving through different cultures across the globe. There is a really wonderful amount of black deities in here. You'll be surprised how many goddess oracles and tarot decks focus exclusively on Greek and Roman. So we really have a good expansive selection of energies to work with. Beautiful Kali Ma, which is Hindu. Isis, obviously Egyptian. Inanna, is that not a beautiful image right there? Oh, I love the images. It's also lovely to have a deck that's balanced, that's gods and goddesses, because there are many people that work with the divine masculine and divine feminine. They may be on a pagan path, a Wiccan path, or that's just what you align with. So to have that balance, and it's good for us to have balance as readers, whether for personal or other people, of those energies, because we are made up of a mix of them, regardless of how you personally relate. We have all the energies within us. High Priest of Atlantis. Hell, this is a really beautiful card. Really beautiful artwork there. Hecate. Hathor. Just love that image. Epona. Not my favourite, I've got to say, that one for me. A Dryad. Butterfly Maiden. These cards, because of the texture of them, they do kind of clump together a bit, so that's something else to note. Brigid, beautiful image again. I mean, the art is just stunning. Then you've got the Avalon Priestess. Apollo there in all his glory with all his symbols around the edge. Let's take a look. That's Apollo, shall we? Aphrodite, beautifully curvy there in a wonderful dress. I wish I owned that. Slightly darker purple though. Beautiful image. Rhiannon, a little bit strange for me having Rhiannon and Epona in the same deck, but yeah, I like this image. I don't particularly like the Epona one though. Ra. Pele. Two stuck together. I love this image. Is that not just gorgeous? Mermaid of Lemuria, Merlin. That Lilith. Powerful. I love that image. And then some Christian imagery at the end. So that is the deck. We will talk a little bit more about that. And this is your guidebook. So standard guidebook setup, realistically, guys. Got your welcome, your introduction as expected, purpose of the cards, working with the cards, welcome ritual, so that you can connect with the cards, which is quite nice to have, because especially if you are new and you're not used to blessing decks or, you know, kind of activating decks, then that's nice to have. Clearing and blessing, how to do a reading, and then you've got some card spreads. Not really my favorite, they're not particularly anything special. And then you're into the interpretation of the cards. So that's the only image you have. There's no more images in here, so you do not get a repeat of the artwork in color or black and white. You get the name, the wording that's on the card, a little bit more information to give you a bit more of an opening into that card's energy. Then you have, if it's a deity, it might be a god. If it's a goddess, if it's what they consider to be a guardian, then you will have the information on whoever that is. Then you'll have the meaning of the card itself. And then you'll have additional meanings at the back here that are kind of like a breakdown and an invocation. So quite a lot of information there. So if you are new, if this is a first deck, it would be a good one if you're planning to use the book. If you want to learn more about gods and goddesses, then it's a nice way to introduce you to some that perhaps you're not familiar with, because you do get that kind of information about the deity there. But they're all set out exactly the same, like so, and that's all the way through, right the way till the back. And then you've got your bit about the author, and that's pretty much your book. So it is, like I said, very extensive. It's certainly one that you don't have to be an intuitive reader. You can turn to your book and you can meditate on some of the things in here, as well as looking into the cards themselves and get a grasp for the different deities within. So, my personal thoughts on the deck, and as always, these are my personal thoughts, and as always, for some, it's going to be my cons are your pros and your cons are my pros. So everyone's looking for something different. So when I give my opinion, you might think to yourself, well, I actually love that aspect, so I can't wait to go and order this deck. Or I might be saying something positive about the deck. You're like, well, actually, I don't like that part. So that's why it's good to go through and just to talk about a little bit, basically. So first things first, for me, I'm not really a fan of having the Christian iconography popped in the deck. That's my personal opinion. In here, they're classed as guardians. There's other decks, they're classed as ascended masters. I mean, there's so many titles that they have given, especially to Mary, well, both Marys, to put them into decks to appeal to people that are on all sorts of different spiritual paths. So that might be a plus for you to have them in there, someone that you're familiar with. For me, they are not part of my spiritual path and belief system. So those cards simply come out the deck for me. I've done it with other decks. I've spoke about it in my reviews. That is a personal choice. I know some of you do it too, and some of you love the fact they're in there. Now, the thing that, I don't know, for me, this deck, I've not connected with it. And it's certainly not the artwork. The art of the gods and goddesses in here, for the most part, is truly stunning. I absolutely love it. But I do think their sense of guardians, like we've got Merlin, we've got Mermaid of Lemuria, there's a Priestess of Avalon in here. For me, they're just random cards and random energies that don't go with the rest of the deck. Now that's for me when I'm working with the deck in my sacred space. They're just energies that don't fit for me, and don't run smooth in a reading when they do come up surrounded by the gods and goddesses around them. So for me, that's a real con to have those guardian cards in the deck. And it's also the author's opinion of what they consider to be a guardian, just like it is an opinion of what someone decides is an ascended master. So for me, I'm not a lover of those cards, but the deities in here are, like I said, stunning. Short of really one or two that I'm not particularly fond of, I adore the rest, and I will absolutely use this deck, but I will use take out the cards that really aren't for me, I'll use it for the occasional reading, but I do have God and Goddess decks I prefer more that I haven't had to kind of mess around with. But I think they're going to come into their own for me as cards on my altar. So a lot of you have one card tarot stands so that you can stand up your oracle card on your altar like this for a meditation or a spell or ritual or a focus, or as a way to connect in if you can't afford a statue of a particular deity, for example. These are going to come into my practice that way. They're going to be on my altar. I'm going to use them in ritual practice when I'm working with that particular deity. There's deities in here. Like I said, the black deities are done so very beautifully in this deck. I really like a lot of the art that's in here. Ugh. I just really love it. So for me, it's an art deck. It happens to me sometimes. Sometimes I'll get a deck and I'm like, darn, if I had actually looked at all these cards beforehand and not just seen sort of the stunning God and Goddess ones that I had liked, I probably wouldn't have purchased it. But it will certainly get use, and if it doesn't come into my rotation, then I will simply pass the deck along, which is what I do, because I don't keep decks for the sake of having decks if they're not in use. But I think I'm definitely going to be using these as art cards on my altar. But I think if you are looking for this kind of deck, if you want to experience gods and goddesses that aren't in all the other decks, there's some different ones in here. There's some different energies. It does have those guardian energies, which again bring another level if that's something that you're interested in and like. So I think this is going to appeal to a lot of you, and I'm very interested to hear below. Do you have this deck and work with it and love it? Is this deck not for you? What is your favourite god and goddess deck? So a deck with both energies in, because there's so many goddess ones, as we know. It's great to hear. If you want me to review a particular deck, then leave that down below, because I'm always open to buy a new deck, guys. But that is it from me. I will speak to you all very soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Blessed be.